If you need a bloody dating coach, my friend, it's over. You've already failed before it's even begun. I don't even understand why you would even believe that it would make sense for you to spend hundreds upon thousands of dollars learning from a group of men on how to speak to women. Truth of the matter is, if you just actually go out and talk to bloody women, you'll begin to start picking up all of the information you would have obtained without spending hundreds upon thousands of dollars on different courses and whatnot. Which kind of bothers me greatly that this is even like a market, right? Because it's oftentimes a market that exists with one real goal. And that goal is never how do you form a relationship with a woman of which to facilitate like a family and obtain some kind of like higher purpose or meaning to life. It's just kind of just how do you put your dick inside of them. I'm gonna be really honest with you, fam. It's really not rocket science. There's really not like a lot to like. There's not much like social dynamic. There's a lot of nonsense and fluff to like dating coaches and pickup artistry. And it's not even to say that some of the stuff isn't work or some of the stuff isn't good information. It's just that when you really think about it, there's a fundamental flaw and issue with it. I say fundamental. There's lots, but I kind of wanted to really kind of go over this stuff, right? Because the idea that we need dating coaches and that we need to teach young men mostly how to court women or how to date women kind of treats women as if they're a thing outside of like being human. And in the manosphere, there isn't much talk on like the humanity of women, right? A lot of people, which I find to be interesting, mostly because obviously I'm me and I know my thoughts, but it is interesting to me that a lot of people, detractors, are upset with me because I woman bash or I look like a misogynist or whatnot. But the truth of the matter is, I actually greatly prefer the company of women. I actually really like women. I like women more than I like men, and I like hanging out with guys, but like, there's something about women. Anyhow, I'm not gonna go. I like women, okay? And obviously, I understand that look, this is gonna be sound like simping, but I think the only reason why it's gonna sound a lot like simping is because a lot of people have become way too atomized and have lost focus on what you probably should honestly be upset about, what you should honestly be mad about. And a lot of people focus a lot of time with like being upset with like women for being what they are, despite the fact that there's a lot of guys who say, nah, it's just female nature. You can't be mad, you can't hate them, but it's like, okay, that whole female nature thing only really goes so far, considering the environment of which the individual would have evolved in. It can only go so far to say it's female nature when you really start breaking it down and analyzing it, which I'll have to do at some point in time. But, again, as much as people constantly say they're not, angry at women, they're not mad at women for just being what they are, there's a clear and obvious disdain for what women are, especially when you listen to dating coaches, when you look at like the Fresh and Fit podcast, when you look at Donovan Sharps of the world, when you look at was it John Lifestyle, some other guy I saw who, interestingly enough, seems to find himself having beef with other dating coaches, and you go figure. When you look at that analyzation, right, there's a lot of like dehumanization of women and not kind of really treating them of like what they are, and what they are is just people. They're just, there's a lot of like trying to mechanize women and like find patterns and mythologies behind their thoughts, actions, and behaviors. And I kind of do this with everyone and everything, right? I treat every person like a little puzzle that I'm trying to like figure out and make sense of, which can be fairly annoying, I know. It's a weakness of mine, but it's also a strength. But the point is, there's a lot of like mythologizing about women and with the dating coaches that kind of take the guys who are learning from it kind of outside of like the ultimate purpose or goal of which we should be trying to obtain. And the ultimate purpose, the ultimate need or desire to want to invest in a woman is to return that investment with a family, right? But of course, that's not really what people want, because when you really think about it, right? To defend my conclusion as to why the ultimate investment of like a woman would be a family is because outside of that relationship, outside of a sexual inclusion in your relationship with a woman, what are you left with in the grand pursuit? Nothing. The grand pursuit without that return of like having her be with you and having her support you and then having her have children that you then raise and impart your abilities and skills to and that you help, give a good life to, outside of like that, a woman cannot give you anything. I mean, except her, her wop, her tight wop. But honestly, a tight wop can really only go so far, especially if you treat the tight wop like it's meaningless, which again, a lot of the dating coaches project this idea that we need to have an abundance mindset. We need to date lots of women so we don't feel attached to them, so we don't feel like there's a lot of value in each of them and it's easy for us to move on and date and go to the next woman. But of course, if that be the case, if it is so meaningless, if none of these relationships matter, why do we struggle and fight so hard to obtain something that means nothing? What is this? Is this Nier Automata? Huh? Is this what we're doing? We're just a bunch of robots fighting other robots for no reason? Did I spoil that game for you guys? Shit, I'm not even sure if you guys will get that reference now that I think about it. I digress. The point is, if the ultimate goal or desire of dating coaches is teaching young men how to have sex with women just for the sake of like having sex with them, then it's an ultimately meaningless pursuit that cannot mean anything to the individual himself, because he's supposed to obtain an abundance mindset that makes it so that he doesn't care about the individual women that he's trying to court. And hopefully you guys can see the feedback cycle here that I'm trying to articulate, right? But of course, again, the relationship between males and females is a very strong and very powerful one, because it is the creation of people. We are talking about making people. And it's not even a particularly like religious idea. It's just a natural fact or consequence of existence. I can't control. Even if there be no creator of the universe, the long and short of it is sperm plus egg equal people. It's how it be. But the thing about being a human is we require so much, right? We're not lizards that just hatch and then we just are like, okay, let me just go squiggle around, in the bush over here. We need love, we need care, we need affection, we need instruction, we need challenge, we need adversity. Our souls have to be tempered by reality, by the things that are happening to us. There's so much to our existence as human beings that cannot simply be boiled down to, pump a good 145 times, release, and then never talk to that woman again. There's more to our desires and needs as human beings that are not being addressed or can't be addressed by what the so-called dating coaches are giving out to a lot of these young men. There's lots of different elements about dating coaching that need to be criticized and analyzed, and in this video I'm mostly kind of looking at like the motivations behind it and how the methodology or like the treatment of women is a little mishandled and a little stupid, like a little goofy and silly. And that just kind of just trying to have sex with them and just trying to like rotate them out and treating them like they're like objects, like legitimate objectification of women, is not a healthy mindset for any of us. Now, and again, it's not lost on me. What a lot of people kind of like to do these type of conversations, these accusations, is they get defensive. They get angry. They get bothered by the fact that you say that you're objectifying these women and whatnot. And it's like, listen, I'm not saying that women don't need to be criticized. I've literally years of videos on my channel criticizing women. What I am saying is that you cannot become the very thing you want to destroy. And that's what dating coaching has evolved into. It has evolved into trying to get men to treat women the way a lot of women treat men. The irony being is that men don't like the way that women are treating them. Okay, let me explain. Let's take into consideration what is the basic obvious core tenet of what a lot of dating coaches and pickup artistry is. You can kind of boil it down to about two basic points. Everything can kind of be summarized into these two main ideas. One, you have to be physically attractive, if not physically presentable. And two, you have to play a whole bunch of different scarcity mind games to make the woman think that you're more important than what you actually are. That's all it kind of boils down to. There's no more, work out, get nice clothes, get a good job, get lots of status. It all comes down to just physically be attractive. There you go. All of the mind games all of the scarcity nonsense that is all accrued throughout all of dating coaching all boils down to one simple thing. You just have to make the woman think that you're special, so it makes her feel special to be around you. And you can obtain this in lots of different ways. All the negging nonsense that you do. Again, juxtaposing your large amounts of status against her lack of status is another way. There's lots of different ways psychologically that you can go into it, but that's kind of what it just boils down to, just the long and short of it. Of course, you can analyze different methods, but again, it all boils down to that one thing. Now, one of the kind of greater, I guess you could say, issues with these two elements is that's how women treat men. You probably okay, fine. Women are incredibly shallow. Why? It'll take a little bit of a moment for me to crack that case, but the long and short of it is women are incredibly shallow. An over importance on your physical looks, an over importance on the value of being physically attractive is a very, very feminine trait. And we kind of could see this throughout, just the general course of history. Males have not been the ones throughout history that really cared. European males are a little different. But most males aren't really the ones who need large amounts of endurance unless it's mostly to represent some kind of ideal of skill or ability or battle rank or something like that. The idea of being aesthetically pleasing to look at is mostly a feminine ideal and something women are mostly ascribing to have. Now, of course, you can go look into Greek and Roman culture and all of that, but that's not that's not all of human history. Usually, at least last 100, 500 years or so, needing to look beautiful to attract mates. That's mostly what women have been doing. Women need to look good to get males to come approach them, to care about them, and to invest in them. Now, there's been a flip-flop. There's been a need or desire, thanks to feminism, into trying to make women act like men. And in this element here, in this element of needing males to be super attractive or beautiful or presentable, is mostly women striving to act more masculine, right? Because again, men care about the way women look. Men are mostly, I wouldn't even say mostly, but a lot of the things that attract men to begin to care about investing into women is the way they look physically. And women, on the other hand, have, throughout most of human history, never really needed or had much regard for this for an obvious reason. It don't matter how beautiful a male is. If he can't rake, if he can't wrestle, those farm animals, if he can't fight, if he can't farm, what good does looking at this nigga do? Now, due to just the beauty of modernity, because a lot of what makes us as males has mostly been, I'm not going to say commodified, but has been mostly simplified and mostly mechanized. A lot of what we do in our modern society, at least here in America, is easily done, again, by machines. Men, the skills that were needed to become males isn't really translated that well anymore. So a lot of women have indeed adapted and evolved into, instead of needing men to perform, they need men to validate. And what's the best way to get men to validate? By getting the most attractive male that all the other girls want, right? So the big issue here, of course, is that because women have flipped into this surface level need for attractive males, right? We're seeing, again, thanks to feminism, this push to make women kind of act a little bit like men. And in turn, this has made a lot of men act like women, where we care so much about our physical appearance and looking good and looking presentable, which again, it's not to say that you shouldn't care about the way you look physically. You do, you should. It isn't to say that you shouldn't work on it, but an overvaluing of it to where you work out so much, not because you need the physical strength to do anything, but because you want girls to like you. That's a feminine thing. It's the overvaluing and the over need for validation from the females to tell you that you look good and that you're handsome and you're pretty. That's the feminine trait. Again, so be clear, I'm not saying you should absolutely exercise it at 100%. You should absolutely have a strong physical body just to make living life easier. But again, all of the need for all the performance enhancing drugs a lot of these Hollywood actors are doing, all these males are doing, that's the feminine thing. It's the need to do so much to be physically attractive. And that's one thing that the dating coaches are constantly peddling to a lot of these young men. You know, it's not your performance and your skills and your abilities that make you worthwhile as a male. One of the first and foremost things that you have to do is you have to look good. And that overimportance, again, is the feminine trait rather than the simple need to look good. Because again, to be clear, you got to look physically attractive to some degree. Just got to. Now, the second thing that, or rather the second push to femininity that I've seen from a lot of the dating coaches is the need to manipulate, the need for mind games, the need to change relative value, or perceived value between the male and the female. Again, that's something that women do. The need to manipulate men, from the female perspective, kind of comes from a very clear and obvious truth of reality. And that truth of reality is women don't oftentimes possess the physical strength nor the skills cultivated from being trained to kind of enact their will upon the world. Whereas like women, you don't typically see too many female lumberjacks. You don't typically see too many female miners. You don't typically see too many female mechanics. You don't typically see females doing jobs and activities that are ones of cultivating of like skills and abilities and enacting your will upon the world, changing the way the world is and manipulating it, to what you want it to be. It's not typically what women do. What women typically have to do because they lack that strength and they lack those skills is they manipulate men and get them to act for their own will, right? Which is it wrong? Is it right? But that's what they do, and throughout the course of your life, if you have any experience with women, you felt it. We've all experienced the manipulation of women because, again, whether they do it subconsciously or consciously, some of them it is straight up conscious, they don't express their will upon the world the way men have to do so, or the way men do so. Right? So needing to manipulate, needing to kind of navigate social spheres and move things kind of to work in the way they wanted them to work without, necessarily expressing it, again, is something that is typically feminine. The idea that we as men have to convince women or change their minds or use different strategies and methods to kind of pull them along and get them to act in your so-called frame or get them to act with your program. Again, that's not what we men typically do. Men are not ones who typically require the need of manipulation as such, because again, as males, we kind of understand we have to make the world work. So we work together. We can naturally link and work together and process what needs to be done and work in a unit to get there. So trying to convince women to date you, trying to play all these different mind games, again, that's mostly a very, very feminine behavior, because men's battle is not oftentimes an emotional one that's fought with the self, but more so a physical one that's fought with the world. It be other men that have goals that are against you, or men who are evil, or just the elements of taking the dirt and then smelting it and then changing its form, being a blacksmith, stuff like that. Cooking can even be like that, dropping off packages, although you have some female delivery drivers. My point being, it's not mostly a masculine thing to do. And the abundance mindset is one that is, I'm going to have to kind of go over multiple times really to really kind of break that one down, is another example, of this adoption of feminine traits, particularly a modern feminine trait. The modern feminine trait of not having much care or much value in their relationships with men because there are so many males available, or so many males perceived to be available to you, thanks to, I guess, the internet, or thanks to just, going around in life and having so many men want you, right? The idea of having this mindset, of course, doesn't very well work out for males for lots of reasons. But I think the more core reason in today's video I kind of want to focus on is the fact that, it again is a negative trait. It's not good to think of humans as an abundant resource. Even if humans are 7 billion strong, you can't meet all 7 billion humans. Most humans, even if you could get even if you have 1,000 friends on Facebook, you still probably only interact with probably at the most 20 to 25. And even then, that's still being pretty popular. Most humans, no matter how many likes you get on the Instagram or on the Facebook or even on your YouTube videos, no matter how many views, no matter how much, you can't really invest and entertain and talk to large amounts of people. And yet lots of women, because they have gotten so much attention from males, and the Sims as everyone loves to bash instead of honestly sympathize with and try to help, because so much of that has gone on, it has inflated a lot of women's egos and inflated their perception, and it makes them not value men. And not to mention, you've got all the feminism telling women that they don't need to value men, because the only thing that a lot of these women really care about is the utility of males. It's the money of males. They only care about how males give women money. And of course, they say you don't need men to give you money. I mean, ironically, a lot of the things that a lot of women do, particularly on like OnlyFans or Instagram, is indeed just being pumped because males want them sexually. But even that, even with them just like being accountants or like them being lawyers or them being doctors, right? Let's just say, the career choices. They don't technically need males to facilitate their life or to help them out and whatnot, like financially. And of course, that's a very short-sighted view of men. Of course, it's hilariously short-sighted. It's almost as short-sighted as just viewing females as just individuals to just ejaculate your sperm into. We cannot, at least hopefully you guys can grasp, that as young men, and even women, which I have argued against, again, for the last couple of years, cannot reduce humans to their simple utility to us, because that's not how we are to ourselves, and that's not how other people are to the friends and the family members that they have. No woman is simply some dispensary of vagina which you use to just pump into, in the same way that no man is simply a wallet for which you to extract resources from. But the dating coaches of today have forced young men into trying to perceive or force young men to act in the same manner that so many of the women that have genuinely created this problem are, and that is reducing us into simple utilities or simple things to be used rather than human beings to have relationships with and human beings to interact with and build with and invest into. And that's kind of one of the biggest issues with dating coaching nowadays. Trying to get young men to act like the awful women that have created this problem does not make anything better. It makes it worse. And the worst problem still is that young men can't act like young women because women do not value men the way men value women. And I don't necessarily simply mean in a biological sense, women being the limiting reagent of reproduction, being as, even if it takes one sperm cell, to one egg cell, it has to be, incubated inside of the female. I don't really even mean just that, but I mean just in terms of like our worth and value and what it means to be a male, it requires, unfortunately, that's how we've been built and how we've been trained. It requires that women give you social proof, that women accept you, that women acknowledge you, that women tell you that you matter and that you mean anything. And every metric or power level is all just predicated on what do women want, what do women value about us as men, That's what makes us mean something. That's what makes us special. The acquisition of women's favor or an easy time having sex with women is what says we matter to the world, right? That is not healthy for young males, because young males can't treat women the way women can treat men, because men require and need the validation and love and I guess respect from women, which it's hard to really say that any woman really respects you if the only thing that keeps her there is the fact that like you have things that she wants. But again, we'll have to get into that another time. But one of the more important things is the fact that trying to become what women are, trying to become a shallow being that seeks to use people is not going to make you happy. It doesn't even make the women happy. How is it going to make you happy if you copy off of them and then find yourself constantly failing to obtain what the women have an easier time having, because women don't care about you and a lot of women don't like you? It's not. It's not going to be a path to success that really means anything to you in the grander scheme of things. And that's one thing I would like you guys to try to take away from this video. So, to clarify, I'm not saying that all women are this way, because they're not. What I am saying is that the vast majority of women in my age bracket are this way. They do not respect men. They do not value men. They do not invest in men. They do not care about men. And they only think of men solely for the money they can give them, rather than all of the other emotional benefits that you get from having a good relationship with a man. Adopting that mindset is not a good thing, because even if you end up having a bunch of meaningless sex with women, I hope you recognize that all you did was end up having a bunch of meaningless sex with women. And if you don't value it, how can you expect anyone else to? So that being said, I certainly hope that you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click the like button. Yeah, shoot, go and click that. Comment in the comments below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.